You know, it's funny how quickly normal can turn into something you'd give anything to get back. Just last week I was complaining to my wife Hannah about the muddy drive, the gutters sagging, the way our boy Ethan kept leaving his shoes right by the door so I'd trip over them every damn morning. All the tiny, harmless things that meant life was exactly how it was supposed to be. I never thought I'd be wishing for mud or scattered sneakers again. We live in a weathered farmhouse about 5 miles outside Willow Creek, Maine. Nothing fancy, peeling paint, a few boards on the porch that groan if you step on them wrong, and a draft that sneaks up your legs no matter how many times you block it off. Still, it's ours. We moved here 3 years ago to slow down, get Ethan away from the city noise, try and find some kind of peace. Hannah works from home doing bookkeeping, and I split my days between freelance welding jobs and fixing up whatever's falling apart around the house. That morning started off like any other. I was out back by the shed, trying to coax life back into the old generator we kept for storms. The sky was overcast, low clouds that made everything look washed out. There was a damp chill in the air, smelled like wet leaves and something sharp I couldn't quite place. Probably just mildew or mold in the woods nearby. Inside, Hannah was on the couch with her laptop balanced on her knees, hair pulled up in one of those messy knots she somehow made look graceful. Ethan was on the floor by the coffee table, lining up little plastic dinosaurs into a wobbly parade. Every so often he'd make a low growl under his breath, totally absorbed. "Coffee's hot," Hannah called when I came back in, wiping my hands on a rag. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes did that quick flick to my hands and back again, like she was checking to see if I'd cut myself. I had a habit of nicking my knuckles on rusty bolts. "Thanks," I said, dropping a kiss on the top of her head. I poured myself a cup and stood there for a second, just watching them. Ethan's hair stuck out in about 10 different directions. Hannah had freckles starting to bloom across her cheeks from the early spring sun. For half a breath, it hit me how lucky I was. I even thought, remember this moment. As if I somehow knew. Not 5 minutes later, it all started. My phone buzzed on the counter, hard enough it nearly jumped. I thought it was just another spam call and almost ignored it. But then Hannah's phone lit up too, vibrating across the coffee table. Even Ethan's little tablet on the floor chimed and started flashing. It was weird enough I felt a pinch of something cold in my gut. I picked up my phone. The screen was glowing bright red. Huge black letters took up the whole display. Emergency alert. Willow Creek County and surrounding areas. Immediately return indoors. Lock all doors and windows. Do not make any noise above a whisper. Do not attempt to investigate outdoors. This is not a test. I read it twice, my eyes not quite registering. Hannah stood up slowly, phone clutched to her chest. Ethan looked between us, confused. His mouth opened, but Hannah held a finger to her lips before he could say anything. "What the hell does that mean?" I whispered, voice raw. She just shook her head, blinking fast. "I don't know, but we need to do it." So we moved. I went to the front door first, twisting the deadbolt, sliding over the old latch we never bothered with. Hannah hurried around, pulling down blinds, drawing curtains. Every time one of them brushed the window with a little click, we both winced. Ethan stayed glued to my side, clutching my jeans. I could feel his tiny tremors through the fabric. I checked the back door twice, then all the windows. The house wasn't exactly airtight, old frames, thin glass, but it was what we had. When I came back into the living room, Hannah was crouched next to Ethan, whispering. He looked scared, but he nodded, and she pulled him in close. Then our phones buzzed again, almost at the exact same time. I didn't even want to look. When I did, the new alert was somehow worse. Emergency. Update. Remain completely silent. Shut off all electronics immediately. Do not respond to voices outside your home. Trust only those inside with you. Further instructions to follow. Jesus Christ, I breathed. My mouth was so dry it hurt. I powered off my phone. Hannah did the same, hands trembling. I reached down and turned off Ethan's tablet. The house seemed to grow heavier around us, like the air itself thickened. We all sat on the couch together. Nobody said a word. I could hear the old clock ticking on the mantel, each second dropping like a hammer. Somewhere in the kitchen, the fridge compressor kicked on with a soft hum, and I actually felt my heart stutter. We must have sat like that for 10 minutes, maybe 15. My legs were cramping, but I didn't dare move. Hannah had her eyes squeezed shut, one hand on Ethan's back. I kept scanning the window, even though the blinds were drawn. I couldn't see a thing, but I kept staring, waiting for something. Then it happened. A voice, thin and reedy, drifting up our porch steps. "Hello? Anyone home? Please, I need help." Hannah's nails dug into my thigh. Ethan's whole body jerked. I put a finger to my lips again, praying he'd understand. The voice came again, a little closer this time. "My brother's hurt. Please, don't leave us out here." It sounded off, like it was being played through a busted speaker, warbly and hollow. I could picture someone standing just outside the door, their face pressed up close, lips too big, teeth too many. My brain was feeding me horrible images I didn't want. We stayed perfectly still. Ethan buried his face in Hannah's sweater, shoulders shaking. I held my breath so long my chest burned. The doorknob rattled once, twice. A soft scrape like fingernails dragging across wood. The doorknob gave a gentle turn, like whoever was out there was testing it, seeing if maybe we'd forgotten to lock up. Then it stopped. I could almost feel them out there on the porch, listening, waiting. My skin crawled with the sense of being watched through the thin wood of the door. I tightened my arm around Hannah and Ethan, and we all just sat there, hearts thudding so loud it seemed impossible that thing outside couldn't hear us. Then it spoke again. Only now the voice was wrong in a way I can't properly explain. It was as if someone was reading lines off a card in a language they didn't really understand. The cadence twisted, syllables dragging in weird places. "Please, my brother needs help." Ethan whimpered so soft I barely caught it. I clapped my hand gently over his mouth, trying not to make the slightest sound. His small tears soaked into my palm. Hannah was shaking, breath hitching like she might start sobbing. I leaned my forehead against hers, hoping somehow that would keep her calm. The thing on the porch started to move. I heard the boards creak under its weight, slowly crossing from one end of the porch to the other, pausing every few steps. My mind conjured up these vivid, awful images of something with skin too tight, stretching around bones that weren't quite shaped right, of a mouth that split all the way back to the ears. I kept telling myself, "You haven't seen anything yet, don't imagine more than there is," but it didn't matter. My head was full of horrors all on its own. The footsteps faded, and for a moment there was silence again. Then we heard it. A low, vibrating hum, like someone blowing across the top of a bottle, but deeper, more layered. It crawled right up through the floorboards, vibrating in my teeth. Hannah clutched my arm so tight her nails bit through my sleeve and into my skin. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, tears leaking down his face. That hum only lasted a few seconds, but it felt like it went on forever. Then it was gone, leaving the air weirdly dead, like every bit of sound had been sucked out of the world. Even the fridge had gone silent, the clock no longer ticking. I realized then that everything in the house, every machine, every tiny mechanical noise had stopped. I didn't want to move, but I needed to know what was happening. I gave Hannah's shoulder a tiny squeeze, then stood up slow, careful not to let the old couch springs squeal. I crept over to the front window and eased the edge of the blind aside just enough to peek out. The porch was empty, but the gravel beyond was wrong, scuffed up in strange, sweeping arcs, like something had been dragged in circles. And leading away from the porch were these shallow trenches, almost claw marks gouged into the dirt. They stretched off into the road and disappeared into the trees. I dropped the blind and pressed my back against the wall, breathing hard. Hannah was staring at me, eyes wide and desperate. I just shook my head. I didn't trust myself to whisper yet. Then, all at once, our phones lit back up. Not turning on fully, just the screens pulsing with pale light. The devices on the mantel, the old digital photo frame Hannah's parents had sent us last Christmas, the little kitchen timer that showed the date, they all started to flicker too. No alarms, no beeps, just eerie, silent light. The glow moved across the room like ripples on water. That's when every screen, every single one, flashed the same words in those thick, blocky letters. We see you. We hear you. Stay silent or join us. I felt my knees buckle and sank down onto the floor. Ethan let out a thin, terrified wail before clapping his hands over his mouth. Hannah pulled him tight, tears streaking her cheeks. I didn't understand. Join them? What the hell did that mean? I looked around like the walls might start whispering answers, but there was only that awful silence pressing in. Then the kitchen radio popped on, though it had been turned off for days. Static crackled out, low at first, but growing sharper. Through the crackle came something that sounded almost like voices, chopped and rearranged, words I couldn't parse. Then a single clear sentence pushed through, mechanical and cold. Sound is the path. The radio clicked off, leaving us in heavy darkness. I realized I was holding my breath again. When I finally let it out, my chest burned. We couldn't just sit here forever. If whatever was out there could turn things on inside our house, who knew what else it could do? I crawled over to Hannah and Ethan and hugged them both. Hannah's whole body was vibrating like a plucked string. We need to go downstairs, I whispered into her ear. The old root cellar. It's all dirt walls, thick door. If we're lucky, maybe sound won't carry down there. Hannah nodded, breath shuddering. Ethan didn't say a word, just clung to her side. We moved slow, painfully slow, across the living room. I winced with every tiny squeak of the floorboards, each one sounding deafening to me. Down the narrow hall, past our bedroom, through the kitchen to the pantry. Behind the shelves was a short door, barely 5 feet tall, leading down to the old root cellar. My grandfather used it for storing potatoes and onions when he lived here. It smelled of old earth and faint mildew, but it was deep, quiet, and surrounded by ground. I pulled open the door with agonizing care. It let out the tiniest wooden creak. We all froze. Nothing happened. I exhaled slowly, then motioned them in. The steps were steep, just packed earth and a few rough boards hammered in. I went first, then held Ethan's hand as Hannah followed. Once we were all inside, I eased the door shut behind us, bracing an old crate against it for good measure. Down there, it was colder. The air felt thicker, damp. I could hear our breathing echo off the dirt walls. Ethan pressed close to me, Hannah's arms wrapped around his shoulders. We all sank down together onto the hard floor, trying to make ourselves as small as possible. For a long time, we didn't speak. The only sounds were the slight rustle of our clothes and the faint drip of water somewhere deeper in the earth. I kept listening for anything above us. Footsteps, scraping, that awful humming. But there was nothing. Just silence that felt too heavy, like it might smother us on its own. Then Ethan whispered so soft I almost didn't catch it. Daddy, do you think it's gone? I pulled him close, kissed the top of his head. I don't know, buddy, but we're going to stay right here until we're sure. Hannah's hand found mine in the dark. Her grip was tight, almost desperate. I squeezed back, hoping it said everything I couldn't. We sat there for what felt like hours, though it was probably less. Time gets slippery in the dark. I tried counting seconds in my head to keep from losing it, but my mind kept drifting back to those words on the screens. We see you. We hear you. Stay silent or join us. What did that mean? Join them? Were they even talking about killing us or something worse? I didn't want to find out. At some point, Ethan started to nod off, his head drooping against Hannah's chest. I wanted him to rest. It was better for him not to be awake and scared, but every time he shifted, a tiny rustle of his shirt made my heart jump. I thought Hannah might be asleep too, her breathing slow and deep, until she whispered so faint I barely caught it. "Did you see what was outside?" Her voice sounded strange in the dark, like it didn't belong to her. I swallowed. "No, just marks in the dirt, like something crawled or got dragged. Whatever it was, it's not like anything I know." She shivered against me. "It was copying us, Ben, using voices, like a lure." "Yeah," I breathed. "I know." We sat silent again. My thoughts were all tangled. Who was sending those alerts? Was there anyone actually out there trying to help us? Or was the warning from the same thing hunting us? I didn't want to start second-guessing every sign of help. But what choice did we have? Nothing made sense anymore. Above us, the house creaked. Just the old beams settling, I told myself. This house always groaned in the wind. Except there was no wind. The air outside had gone dead still ever since that humming started. Then there was a noise, a very light, very deliberate tap, like fingertips drumming along the floorboards overhead. My blood went cold. It moved slowly across the kitchen, pausing now and then, as if listening. I held Hannah's hand so tight my knuckles hurt. Ethan was awake now, too. I could feel his tiny shoulders trembling. We stayed completely still, barely breathing. The tapping moved closer to the pantry door. Then it stopped. For a second there was nothing. Then came a voice, so soft it was almost gentle, like someone trying to coax out a frightened child. "Hello? I heard you down there. It's okay. You're safe now. You can come out." It sounded human. Almost. But the words were spaced wrong. Some syllables too long, others snapped short. Like it was trying on our language and didn't quite fit inside it. I pressed Ethan's head against me so he couldn't hear more. When no one answered, the voice tried again, this time mimicking my own, perfectly. "Ethan, buddy, it's Dad. It's all right. Come up here. I need your help." Ethan stiffened. Even in the dark, I could sense the confusion on his face. How badly he wanted to believe that was really me. I put my mouth right next to his ear. "It's not me. Don't move. No matter what." Then silence again. The worst kind. The kind that stretched on so long I started imagining I'd dreamed the voice. Maybe we'd finally lost them. A sharp clatter exploded above us, like every dish in the cupboards had been knocked loose. Hannah clapped her hand over Ethan's mouth before he could yelp. My heart slammed into my ribs so hard I thought it might burst. Above, something heavy slid across the floor. A chair, a table. Then that low hum returned so deep it made the cellar dirt quiver. I felt it in my bones. It lasted only a moment, then stopped. Slowly, very slowly, the house above us quieted. No more sliding, no more tapping. The hum faded into nothing. I held on to Hannah and Ethan for dear life, trying to will my heartbeat to slow down. I didn't know if they'd left, or if they were waiting right outside the cellar door, listening for us to slip. We stayed huddled there for a long time. My legs cramped, my back throbbed, but I didn't dare shift. I counted to 1,000 in my head, lost track, started again. Then Hannah did something that nearly stopped my heart. She groaned softly and leaned away, clutching her side. "Babe?" I whispered. "What's wrong?" She sucked in a sharp breath through her teeth. "It's the baby. Just a cramp, maybe. It happens." Except I could tell by the way her hand pressed into her belly, by how her face screwed up in pain even in the dark, that it wasn't just a cramp. Not this time. "Try to breathe slow," I said, voice barely there. "Don't make any noise, okay? We're okay." She nodded, but her jaw was clenched so hard I thought she might crack a tooth. Ethan's hand found mine in the dark. I squeezed it. Time blurred again. Hannah's breathing turned ragged, then eased, then tightened up all over. I didn't know if it was early labor or just stress, probably both. But there wasn't a damn thing I could do for her down here. Eventually, exhaustion started to pull at us. Ethan's head drooped, then jerked up, then drooped again. Finally, he slumped against me. I stroked his hair. Hannah's grip on my arm loosened, her breathing evened out. I hoped she'd fallen asleep. I didn't dare. I sat there in the dark, eyes open but seeing nothing, listening for the slightest creak or scrape above us. My mind kept replaying that voice mimicking me. "Ethan, buddy, it's Dad." The exact tone I used whenever I called him in from the yard. I hated how perfect it had been, how easily it could have fooled him. Just when my own head started to nod, there was a faint vibration under my feet. Not footsteps. Something more like a low rumble, distant but growing. I pressed my palm to the dirt. It was trembling. A second later, a muffled boom sounded far off, maybe miles away. Then another. The ground jolted slightly, knocking dust from the cellar ceiling. Ethan startled awake with a tiny squeak. Hannah snapped upright too, breathing hard. "What was that?" she mouthed. I shook my head. "Don't know. Maybe." I couldn't finish, because right then, faint but clear through the dirt above us, came a series of popping cracks, like gunfire. We all looked at each other in shock. If there were people out there shooting, that meant maybe someone else was still alive. Maybe someone was fighting back. But it also meant more noise, more things to draw those creatures. I had no idea if that was good or bad. Another rumble. Then a sound I hadn't expected. Voices, yelling commands. I could just make out fragments, all distorted and hollow through the ground. "Sector clear. Watch your flank. Coming through the trees." Hannah's eyes went wide. "Soldiers?" she mouthed. I nodded, my chest tightening with a mix of hope and dread. Because if they were here, that meant things were bad enough to bring in military. And if they were shouting like that, they were either desperate or already dying. I carefully eased to my feet, bracing against the wall. "Stay here. Don't move unless you hear my voice for real. I'll be back." Hannah grabbed my wrist. Her grip was iron. "Ben, no." But I shook my head. "I have to see what's going on. We can't just wait here forever." I slipped up the steps, heart racing. At the door, I pressed my ear to the wood. Outside, I could hear boots crunching on gravel. More shouts, something that sounded like a high-pitched whine, metal grinding almost. Then came a blood-curdling scream, cut off in a wet gurgle. I froze, my hand hovering over the latch. Whatever hope had started to bloom inside me shriveled up in an instant, because mixed in with the shouts was that same low hum, growing louder, vibrating the very air in my lungs. And right then I knew. Whatever was hunting us hadn't gone anywhere, and whoever was out there trying to fight it was already too late. I kept my ear pressed to the cellar door, straining to make sense of the chaos outside. It was a jumble of sounds, men shouting, boots pounding across our porch, that awful grinding whine rising and falling. Then a new noise broke through, so sharp it made me flinch, a kind of rapid, crackling pulse, like electricity arcing again and again. It was followed by a screech that was nowhere near human. The door shuddered under my palm. I jerked back, heart hammering, terrified something on the other side had slammed into it. I waited, breath held tight in my throat. But it didn't come again. Instead, muffled voices rang out, closer this time, clearer. I recognized the clipped authority in them, soldiers probably. Someone was giving orders, their voice tense but controlled. "Secure the house, check every room, watch for residuals, do not engage alone." Another voice responded. "Yes, sir. Moving left side." I exhaled. shoulders sagging with a mix of relief and terror. Soldiers meant guns, training, maybe answers, but the way they talked, like they expected something to burst from the walls at any moment, didn't exactly soothe me. I hurried back down the steps to where Hannah and Ethan huddled. Ethan was wide-eyed, clutching Hannah's hand so tight his knuckles had gone white. I dropped into a crouch beside them. "There's people up there," I whispered. "Military, I think. They're sweeping the house." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "Thank God," she breathed. "Are we safe now?" "I don't know. Just stay quiet. Don't move unless I say." We waited. Every tick of silence was torture. I heard boots thumping overhead, low voices coordinating, a brief burst of static like someone's radio going off. Then a beam of light sliced through a crack in the cellar door. It swept back and forth, then settled right on where I knew the latch was. I tensed. Was it them, or was it something else, mimicking light the way it mimicked voices? A firm, calm voice called down, "If anyone's down there, we're with the United States Army. We're extracting civilians. Come out slowly, hands visible, stay completely silent unless spoken to." I shot a look at Hannah, who nodded shakily. Ethan clung to me. I pried his hands off and stood, forcing my legs to stop trembling. Then I cracked the door open just a hair. A blinding flashlight hit me square in the face. I threw up a hand to shield my eyes. "Step out," the voice ordered. "Slowly." I obeyed, pushing the door open wider. 2 soldiers in bulky gear waited on the other side, rifles raised. Their helmets were slick with mud, faces obscured by goggles and masks that buzzed faintly with tiny fans. One held some kind of scanner that beeped and pulsed with faint blue light as he swept it over me. "Clear," he said. "Anyone else?" "My wife and son," I rasped. My voice cracked from disuse and fear. "They're right behind me." The first soldier motioned. "Bring them out. Hands visible. Keep your voices low." I turned and waved Hannah and Ethan forward. They rose together, Hannah clutching Ethan's shoulders protectively. As they stepped into the light, the soldier ran his scanner over them too. It gave a steady tone, apparently a good sign. "Okay, you're coming with us," the lead soldier said. His voice was all business. "There's an evac zone set up about a mile east. We're pulling any uninfected we find. Keep your mouth shut unless absolutely necessary. Those things key in on vocal vibrations first." Hannah stiffened. "Infected?" He didn't answer, just turned and gestured us toward the living room. I saw more soldiers moving through, their guns sweeping every corner. One paused by our cracked front window, peering out into the yard. His breath fogged inside his mask. We all stepped gingerly into the hall. Our home looked gutted, furniture overturned, cabinet doors swinging open, dark stains smeared across the floor that I prayed were just mud. The soldier at the window turned back to us and shook his head slightly, murmuring something into a shoulder mic. "Move it," the leader snapped. "Double time but quiet." We shuffled past the couch, Ethan's hand like ice in mine. I kept sneaking glances at the soldiers' weapons, black and blocky with thick barrels and strange attachments that buzzed faintly. They looked nothing like the rifles I remembered from my old reserve days. One of the men carried what looked almost like a leaf blower rig strapped to his back, tubes running to a hand grip that ended in a dish. It whined softly, emitting pulses that made my chest tighten. We reached the porch. The air outside felt almost stale, heavy with rot. I glanced around and my gut twisted. Our front yard was a churned-up mess, deep furrows clawed into the dirt, like something had dragged itself on elbows and knees. The soldier with the scanner swung it in wide arcs as we stepped off the porch. "Stay close," he hissed. "Keep your kid from talking." We moved together across the yard, past my truck half sunk in mud. The world seemed wrong somehow, colors too flat, the breeze unnaturally cold for April. Every tree we passed was stripped bare, not just of leaves, but of bark, deep gouges spiraling up the trunks. Then, from somewhere behind the house came a sickening series of pops, like joints being yanked out of sockets. The soldiers stiffened, weapons up. One of them hit a small button on his harness, and the device on his back lit up, humming with angry blue light. "Contact!" someone barked. I grabbed Hannah and Ethan, dragging them down behind the truck just as a shriek split the air, a sound so sharp it made my vision go white at the edges. I peeked over the hood. It was worse than anything I'd imagined. The thing shambled out from behind our house, moving on limbs that bent backward in too many places. Its skin looked like cracked, wet stone, splitting apart to reveal pulsing tissue underneath that glowed faintly. No eyes, no obvious face, just a rippling mass at the top of its shoulders that quivered, then opened like a flower, exposing rows of tiny vibrating filaments. One soldier raised his weird dish weapon and fired. A beam of distorted air shot out, rippling the space between them. It slammed into the creature, and the filaments burst into a spray of dark fluid. The thing let out that same piercing shriek, staggered, then collapsed in a twitching heap. More shapes were moving behind it, dozens of them, all emerging from the tree line, silent except for the wet rustle of their bodies sliding over each other. "Fall back!" the squad leader yelled, voice cracking. "Covering fire! Get the civvies out of here!" Another soldier grabbed my arm, yanking me up. "Run! Now!" I didn't need telling twice. We bolted across the yard, down the slope behind the house. I didn't dare look back, but I heard the shrieks, the heavy thud of something massive hitting the ground, followed by rapid pulses from the soldiers' strange weapons. The air seemed to shiver with every blast. We reached the tree line. I hauled Ethan over a fallen log, Hannah stumbling after us. Gunfire, if you could call those energy pulses gunfire, echoed behind us. Then came a sound that froze me mid-step, a long, low chorus of hums, all overlapping, vibrating so deep it rattled my ribs. It was the same hum from before, only multiplied by dozens. "Ben," Hannah whispered, tears streaking her dirt-smudged face. "They're calling each other." I didn't know what to say. I just grabbed her hand and pulled her onward, deeper into the shadowed woods, hoping somehow we could outrun whatever was answering that call. We ran until our lungs felt like they were tearing apart, stumbling over roots and rocks, Ethan's sobs hitching with every breath. My legs burned, and every time I slowed, Hannah gave me this desperate look that stabbed right through my chest. So I kept going, dragging them both deeper into the trees. Eventually we collapsed behind a thick cluster of fallen pines, the scent of sap heavy around us. I pressed a finger to my lips. Hannah nodded, pulling Ethan close so his face was buried in her side. He was shivering all over, skin cold and clammy. For a long minute, all I could hear was our harsh, ragged breathing. Then, faint but rising, came that humming again. It swept through the forest like a rolling tide, deeper than anything natural. My teeth buzzed with it, and for a second, I felt my vision blur, colors running together like wet paint. Hannah squeezed her eyes shut. "Don't listen," she whispered. "Ben, don't let it in." I clamped my hands over my ears, but it was useless. The hum was inside me, vibrating through the bones in my skull. Images flickered in my mind, of slick black hollows writhing with twitching filaments, of mouths opening in places no mouth should be. I shook my head hard, trying to banish it. Then the humming cut off. The woods went dead quiet. Too quiet. Even the insects had stopped. I didn't dare stand up, but I eased my head around the log, peering through the needles. Shapes moved between the trees. Thick, hunched bodies that flowed rather than walked, armored in plates that shifted with a wet, grinding sound. They had no eyes, no clear faces, just clusters of faintly glowing ridges along their shoulders that pulsed in and out. As they passed, they paused every few feet, their bodies shuddering like they were tasting the air. One tilted its head, a long split opening along what might have been a throat, emitting a faint ripple I felt in my stomach more than heard. It was heading right for us. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might burst. I wrapped an arm over Ethan's shoulders. Hannah's hand clutching mine so tight her knuckles went white. We stayed absolutely still, barely even breathing. The thing paused on the other side of our fallen pines. It stood there for a full eternity. Then it moved on, flowing away through the brush. Its low pulse faded, replaced by more of that awful silence. When I was sure it was gone, I let out a shuddering breath. Hannah collapsed against me, crying soundlessly into my shoulder. I stroked her hair, kissed her forehead, anything to keep her here with me, grounded. "We can't stay here," I whispered finally. "They'll circle back. We need to keep moving." Hannah nodded, wiping her tears with a filthy sleeve. Ethan didn't say anything, just clung to my side, his small face tight with fear. We pushed on, slower now, trying to stay quiet. The forest seemed endless, every shadow too deep, every branch a potential hiding place for those things. Once we heard screams echo through the hills, short, choked off quickly. I didn't know if they were human or something trying to sound human. Either way, we didn't investigate. By late afternoon, the sky overhead turned bruised purple. We stumbled into a clearing littered with rusted metal, old farming machinery, half buried under vines. In the middle stood a decaying silo, its sides split open, spilling rusted panels like rotting teeth. "It'll block the sound," I said, "at least for a bit." We slipped inside. It smelled of mold and old oil, but it was sheltered. The floor was dirt mixed with scraps of broken boards. I guided Hannah and Ethan down into a corner and sat, pulling them close. For the first time since we'd fled the house, I let myself really look at Hannah. Her face was drawn, eyes hollow. Sweat matted her hair to her forehead, and one hand kept drifting to her belly. "It's okay," I told her. "We'll rest here, just for a little while." She nodded, but there was pain flickering across her features that she was trying hard to hide. Hours slipped by. The light faded to nothing, the inside of the silo turning pitch black. We didn't dare turn on a flashlight, didn't dare make a single noise. I could feel Hannah shaking next to me, Ethan curled up tight in her lap. Then, from outside, a faint metallic clatter, like someone bumping an old plow blade. I stiffened, straining to listen. Another clatter, then a soft scrape. Footsteps, but not normal. They came in little stuttering bursts, like something was skipping steps. A faint glow moved across the crack in the silo wall. I sucked in a breath. 3 small points of light hovered there, arranged in a rough triangle. They shifted, dipping slightly as if sniffing. My mind screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move, couldn't risk the noise. I just held Hannah's hand so tight my nails dug into her skin. Ethan buried his face against my chest, trembling violently. The lights bobbed again. Then a thin, warped voice drifted in, almost playful, but it made my stomach twist. "Little family. So quiet. Hiding." It didn't sound like a threat exactly, but that somehow made it worse. The lights moved on, gliding across the clearing, vanishing into the trees. We stayed there for hours more, frozen, waiting for some new horror to come back. Finally, Hannah leaned her head against my shoulder, tears soaking into my shirt. "I don't know how much longer I can keep quiet," she whispered, voice shaking. "The baby, it's too much." I pressed my forehead to hers. "I know, but we're so close. If we can just keep moving, maybe we'll find—" A noise cut me off. It started as a low drone far off, then grew into that awful humming, louder than ever. It rattled the metal walls, sent dust cascading down from the ceiling. I clapped my hands over Ethan's ears, but he still whimpered, eyes screwed shut. The hum kept rising, the vibrations shaking through my bones. I tasted blood and realized I'd bitten my tongue. Hannah doubled over, clutching her belly with a muffled cry. I tried to pull her close, but she shoved me away. "Ben, it's coming." The humming suddenly cut off. The silence that rushed in was so complete it made my ears ring. I helped Hannah sit up, holding her against me, both of us gasping. Then we heard it. Boots crunching outside. Human voices clear this time, shouting orders. A flashlight beam swept through the crack in the wall. Then a figure appeared in the opening. He wore heavy armor slicked with mud and dark stains, helmet fitted with wide goggles that glowed faint blue. A bulky device was strapped across his chest, blinking with tiny lights. "Civilians," he barked. "You need to come with us right now. We've got a transport 2 clicks east." I stared at him, overwhelmed by relief and terror all at once. Hannah clutched my arm, nodding frantically. "Move!" the soldier yelled. "We can't hold this area long. More signatures coming in." We didn't wait for a second invitation. I scooped Ethan up and half-carried, half-dragged Hannah out into the clearing, the soldier waving us forward. As we stumbled past, I risked a look behind me. More soldiers fanned out through the trees, carrying those strange dish weapons, scanning the forest. Beyond them, shadows shifted. Heavy, shuddering forms creeping between trunks, waiting for any sound. "Don't look back," the soldier snapped. "Just keep moving." So we did. We ran together into the dark, toward whatever fragile hope waited ahead. We pushed through the trees at a half-run, half-stagger, branches whipping at our faces. The soldiers flanked us on either side, moving with urgent, practiced efficiency. Their gear emitted faint beeps and pulses of light, scanning the dark like electronic scent hounds. Every so often one would swing his dish weapon toward a shadow, unleashing a short burst that sent the air rippling in a way that made my stomach lurch. Hannah stumbled beside me, her free hand pressing into her belly. I tightened my grip on her waist, practically carrying her over exposed roots and patches of soft mud. Ethan clung to my other side, breathing fast, eyes wide. I tried to keep my own terror buried, tried to project some kind of calm for them, but inside I felt as fragile as wet paper. The humming started again, low at first, so soft I wondered if I was imagining it, but then it grew, rolling through the forest like a dark tide. The ground under our feet seemed to pulse with it. I could see it hitting the soldiers, too. The one nearest us flinched and shook his head, like trying to clear water from his ears. "Keep going," another soldier yelled. "Just a little farther." Lights appeared ahead, dim red markers dangling from thin poles. They swayed gently, illuminating a crude barricade of trucks and steel plates stretched between thick trees. Behind it, an armored transport squatted on 6 big wheels, its rear ramp yawning open. We broke into a desperate run. Hannah nearly collapsed twice, each time dragging me sideways with her. But we kept moving. The humming rose higher, layered with sharp, keening notes that jabbed right through my skull. I tasted blood again, realized it was trickling from my nose. Then, from behind us came a roar, deep and grinding, like concrete tearing itself apart. I glanced back. Shadows churned between the trees, enormous shapes that seemed to flicker in and out of view, each step sinking deep into the earth. A chorus of those terrible triangular lights bobbed among them, all throbbing in perfect time. The soldiers at the barricade opened fire, not bullets, but pulses of distorted air that cracked branches and left glowing streaks across bark. One of the creatures recoiled, its chest splitting open to spill some oily, steaming fluid. It didn't stop. It just howled that glass shard screech and kept coming. A hand clamped on my shoulder. It was the squad leader from the silo, face hidden behind his glowing goggles. "Get them inside now," he barked, shoving me toward the ramp. I didn't argue. I hauled Hannah and Ethan up the incline, past 2 grim-faced soldiers who pulled us the last few feet inside. The interior of the transport was lit by strips of pale blue LEDs casting long shadows. A pair of medics waited at the back, one immediately steering Hannah to a padded bench. Ethan collapsed into my lap, sobbing quietly. I hugged him close, rocking him back and forth. Hannah lay back against the bench, eyes fluttering shut, one hand still clamped around mine. Outside, the humming reached a fever pitch. I felt it vibrating through the metal floor, could see little ripples skittering across puddles of spilled water. One of the medics pulled a device from a wall bracket, a thick syringe with glowing fluid, and knelt by Hannah. "It's a neural stabilizer," he said quickly, his voice muffled behind his respirator. "It'll keep the resonance from taking hold. Hold her steady." I pinned her shoulders as he injected it into the side of her neck. She jerked once, then went limp, breathing evening out. A faint color returned to her face. The ramp slammed shut behind us with a heavy clang. The engine roared to life, the whole compartment shuddering as we lurched forward. Through a small armored viewport, I caught a glimpse of the barricade falling, trees snapping like matchsticks, one of those towering creatures sweeping a clawed arm through a truck, sending it tumbling end over end. Then we were past it, bouncing over rough ground, trees whipping by outside. The humming didn't fade so much as it got swallowed by the noise of the transport, replaced by the deep rattle of the engine and the hiss of hydraulic systems. I slumped back against the wall, still clutching Ethan. For the first time in what felt like days, I let my eyes close. Every muscle in my body felt like jelly. I must have drifted because the next thing I knew, a gentle hand was shaking my shoulder. It was Hannah. Her eyes were clearer now, though still ringed by deep shadows. "Ben," she whispered, her voice raw. "The baby, it's moving. A lot. Too much." Fear stabbed through me. I reached over, laid my palm against her stomach. Under my hand, I felt a series of sharp little kicks, far more frantic than normal, like the baby was panicking, or responding to something outside us. "It's okay," I lied, forcing a small smile. "We're safe now. Just hold on." She gave a weak nod, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. One of the soldiers came down the aisle, checking on everyone. His armor was spattered with dark fluids that hissed and smoked where they landed. He carried a small handheld device, passing it over each of us. When he got to Hannah's belly, the screen flashed orange. He paused. "How far along?" he asked tightly. 7 months, Hannah breathed. "Why?" He didn't answer, just turned and called something up toward the cockpit. The driver gave a short, clipped reply. I caught only fragments. "Containment ready. Possible resonance contamination. Priority evac." My stomach twisted into knots. The soldier crouched in front of us, his goggled face giving away nothing. "Listen to me carefully. We're taking you to a forward facility. They've got tech there that can suppress the frequency bleed, maybe even fully clear it. But you'll need to stay isolated until they're sure." I nodded numbly. "Just save my family. Please." He clapped my shoulder once, then moved on. I held Hannah's hand like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. Ethan curled tighter into my side, his breathing finally slowing. After a while, the forest outside began to thin, replaced by low hills streaked with patches of concrete and steel. We passed through a checkpoint, floodlights blazing, soldiers in heavier suits waving us through. Beyond it, I saw a compound of squat buildings ringed with fencing, big satellite dishes tracking the sky. The transport pulled to a stop. The rear hatch opened with a sigh of pressurized air. Cool night wind rushed in, carrying the tang of ozone and something faintly burnt. A pair of medics in bright white suits waited outside, beckoning us forward. One carried a tablet that pulsed with shifting lines and arcs. As we stepped down, the lines jumped wildly when it passed near Hannah. They shared a tense look. "Straight to isolation chamber 2, one said. "Keep them separate from the others." Hannah squeezed my hand, panic flashing across her face. "Ben, I'm not leaving you," I promised. "Whatever happens, we're together." They led us across the compound to a long, low building that hummed with hidden machinery. Inside it smelled of antiseptic and metal. They guided Hannah to a padded gurney, motioned for me and Ethan to sit nearby. Clear partitions slid into place around us, panels lighting up with faint blue symbols. A medic worked quickly, strapping small sensors to Hannah's belly. The monitor beside her flickered with jagged lines that danced in eerie synchrony with the baby's kicks. One line split off, pulsing in a slow, triangular pattern. My heart stopped. It was just like the glow I'd seen on those creatures in the woods. The medic caught my expression. "This doesn't mean it's over," she said quickly. "We've had cases that stabilized. The resonance can fade with time if caught early. You'll stay here under observation." Hannah's eyes locked on mine, terrified. I leaned in, pressed my forehead to hers. "We're going to fight this. Together. No matter what." Ethan climbed into her other side, tiny hand resting on her shoulder. For the first time in days, I let myself hope. Even in the blue glow of those cold medical lights, surrounded by buzzing machines and uncertainty, we were still a family, still here. Whatever was out there, whatever it had done to the world, hadn't taken that from us yet. And as long as we held on to each other, I wasn't about to let it.